The film opens with a large crowd lined up in front of a butcher shop, which supposedly sells strange meat that no one has ever tasted before. People are willing to pay any amount for this meat, due to its taste, of course. Day after day, and week after week, the number of customers does not decrease but increases even more, to the extent that even police officers and politicians become regular customers of the shop. One day, one of the customers, a little curious, asks the question everyone wants to ask. What animal is this meat from? The butcher is surprised and tells her it is pork that is imported specifically from Iran. From here, the word spreads through the entire neighborhood like wildfire, which makes the butcher shop even more crowded. The butchers, whose shop no one used to frequent, have now become more famous than fire on a mountaintop, extremely famous, to the point that big meat factories are forced to cease operations because of the new Iranian meat. The butcher shop, which has become like a virus, is managed by two hyper-excited butchers, Vincent and Sophie, who are also married. The butcher shop is located in the suburbs of Paris. Initially, the couple's relationship seemed smooth, but the reality was completely different. The shop had almost no customers, and even the few who came were disgusted by Vincent's strange way of massaging the meat. One day, a group of extremist vegans enters the shop, masked, and attacks him. They throw blood on the butchers and destroy the place. At this, Vincent gets angry and chases one of them, tackling him to the ground. At first, they struggle, but he manages to remove the mask from the vegan's face. The vegan's colleagues quickly arrive at the scene, rescue him, and hit Vincent before running away. On the same day, the couple visits their friends, Stephanie and Mark, at their house for lunch. In the kitchen, Sophie tells Stephanie that the bank refused to give them a loan and that they will soon declare bankruptcy. Stephanie initially tries to encourage her friend, but shortly after, she begins boasting about her husband, who earns a lot of money. It turns out that Stephanie and her husband Mark also own a butcher shop, but it is working very well. A little later, the four of them are eating together. Vincent talks about the recent vandalism incident that occurred at his shop. Mark first mocks him for not having any security measures in place, but then he brings a rifle and gives it to Vincent, telling him it is to protect his workplace from any threat. In reality, Vincent does not have a gun license, but he accepts the gift anyway. On their way back home, Sophie tells her husband she was considering divorce because their marriage had become very boring, but Vincent completely ignores her words. Suddenly, he sees one of the vegans who destroyed his shop the last time. Vincent decides to teach him a lesson. He backs up his car to corner and knock him down, but he loses control of the car and ends up running over the young man and killing him. Vincent becomes terrified of what happened and calls the police to confess and turn himself in, saying it was an accident. But Sophie stops him, saying, "You idiot. Don't you know how many years in prison you could get?" Here, the sensible mind, Sophie, suggests they imitate the serial killer Michel Francois, who used to dissect his victims, put them in black bags, and distribute them throughout the city. Vincent then realizes his wife was watching many killer movies. He appears to fear for himself. At night, he puts the corpse in the shop and cuts it up. An ear falls to the ground, and Vincent's dog eats it. After hours of dissecting the body, the hour is very late. So Vincent decides to leave it and dispose of it early in the morning. The next day, he wakes up late and does not find the body he cut up. While he is desperately searching for it, Madame Cunard, a regular customer of the shop, comes in and says she loved the meat that Sophie sold her this morning, so much so that she returned to buy more. It turns out that Sophie accidentally sold her meat from the corpse they killed, thinking it was pork. Vincent, surprised by what happened, tries to convince the woman to buy another type of meat, but she is insistent that she will only take the same meat as last time. Vincent is left confused, but Sophie is curious to try the meat. Vincent cannot expose the truth in front of the customer, so he cuts a piece of the human flesh and gives it to her. The strange thing is that Sophie loves it immensely. Madame Cunard can no longer wait. She wants the meat. In the end, Vincent tells her a story, saying he imports the meat from Iran, which is why it is so rare and delicious. He sells a large quantity of the meat to Madame Cunard. As soon as she leaves, he reveals everything to his wife. The strangest thing is that Sophie seems not at all disgusted by eating human meat. Not only that, but she even suggests they sell it, saying it might be the most suitable way to dispose of the body. Of course, Vincent cannot believe what he is hearing. He feels horror at her suggestion and prepares to dispose of the meat as quickly as possible. Another customer then enters and asks for the same meat that Madame Cunard bought. Over time, the Iranian meat, human flesh, created a huge stir in the neighborhood, and the couple earned tremendous amounts from selling it. Vincent becomes intensely curious, especially after the rise in popularity of this strange human meat. One night, he takes a piece of the meat at home and tries to eat it, but he is hesitant. But when he tastes it, he is astonished and loves it. Sophie approaches him and says, "Those vegans, they have got some sweet, perfect meat. Their blood is very clean, which is what makes them taste good." Here, Sophie thinks of an unthinkable idea. Why don't we hunt the vegans who have made our lives miserable, and we will earn a fortune from their meat? But Vincent shuts her down and tells her that this is a very silly idea, and it's not our ethics. Before going to sleep, he tells her, "Stop watching those killer shows, lest they corrupt your mind again." The next day, their daughter Chloe brings her friend Lucas for lunch. The family prepares a slice of meat for him that is worthy of his mouth, but Lucas refuses to eat it, saying he is a vegan. Chloe also sides with him and refuses to eat. After the vegans leave, Vincent and Sophie realize that all their preparations for a family meal were wasted because of the vegans, and this infuriates them. At that moment, Vincent decides to go ahead with Sophie's plan and hunt vegans. They almost certainly target their daughter's friend. That same night, the two go to a vegan restaurant and choose the plump restaurant owner to be their first target. They observe him for a while until Vincent manages to break into his room with a cleaver. But at the last moment, his nerves fail him, and he quickly runs away. With the first attempt completely failed, Sophie feels they need to practice more. The next day, they start a new plan. They pretend to be vegans and stage a protest outside a supermarket to look for an easy vegan target to catch. Eventually, a thin man approaches them and praises their efforts. Sophie convinces him to meet in the parking lot to discuss everything related to veganism. According to the plan, the couple goes to the location early and practices different ways to kill their target. A little later, the vegan man arrives in a large car. However, they get angry when they find him coming with two more of his friends. Thus, Sophie and Vincent are forced to cancel their plan. But the surprise is that the vegans tell them they are planning to raid a butcher shop and ask them to come along. Naturally, Sophie and Vincent fear they will be exposed, so they reluctantly agree. All the way there, they keep making up things about themselves, saying they own a flower shop. When they arrive at the location, they are surprised to find it is the butcher shop of their friends, Mark and Stephanie. Sophie begins to hesitate about the idea, but Vincent feels his opportunity has arrived because he harbors resentment toward his wealthy friends. He breaks into the shop with the vegans with great enthusiasm. In the next scene, we see the couple sitting in a restaurant having dinner. There, they discuss a way to lure their victims without arousing suspicion. They disagree on their viewpoints and almost strangle each other. In the end, Vincent gets angry and walks away, while Sophie remains sitting alone. The waiter takes the opportunity and tells her he admires her. Sophie feels they have things in common. Eventually, the waiter takes her away on his motorcycle. When they arrive in front of Sophie's house, things heat up between them, but when Sophie learns he is a vegan, she says, "Got you, my sweet," and bites his tongue intentionally. The man starts bleeding, so she tells him to come inside so she can tend to his wound. The waiter goes in, and he wishes he hadn't. While he is in the bathroom, Sophie goes to Vincent and tells him, "I brought you a catch." Of course, Vincent's knees are knocking together from nervousness. He refuses to do it, but the cunning woman starts provoking him, telling him she will cheat on him with the waiter if he refuses to kill him. When Vincent hears this, his blood boils, and he immediately goes to sharpen the knife. But at the last moment, he backs down again and tells his wife to let the man leave. However, Sophie has another plan. She deliberately gets close to the man again. Finally, this makes Vincent jealous, and he gets up and hits the man until he dies in his hands. The next day, Sophie receives a call from her friend Stephanie, telling her about the vandalism that occurred at their shop last night. They go immediately to the scene of the incident and, of course, feign concern in front of them. There, they see Mark talking with a police officer. It turns out it is the same officer who is investigating the vandalism case at Vincent's shop. The officer asks to speak with Vincent in private. Vincent is terrified and doesn't know what to say. But in the end, it turns out that the police officer also heard about the Iranian pork that is famous in the whole area and wants to buy some. Vincent wants to earn more, so he tells the officer, "Of course, boss, it would be an honor any time." On the same day, they return to their shop and begin selling the human meat again. People queue up to buy the new meat, and it sells out completely within an hour. From then on, they decide to make hunting vegans a normal activity. They prepare stronger weapons and begin a daily killing spree. By the end of the week, they raise the price of the meat and earn amounts they had never dreamed of. One day, they are having lunch with their friends and bring them some of the fake Iranian pork. Just like everyone who has tasted it, Stephanie and Mark immediately fall in love with the meat. But suddenly, as Mark chews the meat, he bites down on something metallic. Stephanie, who worked as a nurse, immediately recognizes it as a pacemaker. It turns out that one of Vincent's victims had a pacemaker implanted in his heart. Vincent tries to cover up the matter, but they are not convinced. The discussion between them escalates into a fight. He fights violently with his friends. Suddenly, Vincent bites Mark's hand and chews it. Then he spits it out, gives Mark a threatening look, and leaves with Sophie. The others stand there, terrified. Sophie and Vincent continue killing people and making huge profits. Of course, Sophie abandons her divorce decision, and they become closer than ever. One day, they go to a vegan festival. It appears that Vincent has become mentally ill. After feeling disgusted with himself, he decides to leave, but they run into their daughter, Chloe, and her vegan friend, Lucas, who is surprised to see them at a vegan gathering. While they are talking, Lucas tells them that many vegans have been disappearing recently, and he is sure that the butchers are the ones doing it. Vincent tries to deny his claim. Lucas loses his temper and shouts at them because they are butchers too, forcing them to leave the festival. One of the vegans who went with them to Mark's butcher shop hears them and is surprised to learn that they are, in fact, butchers. As they are leaving, Sophie sets her eyes on a plump woman and asks her husband to kill her. Unfortunately, Vincent's desire to kill people returns. After completing their mission, they return home. At night, Vincent is cutting up the woman when he suddenly hears a knock at the door. It is the police officer. Vincent opens the door, looking worried. They talk for a while, and the officer says that 10 vegans have disappeared, and now the butchers are the prime suspects. Suddenly, the dog runs out from behind the officer with a human hand in its mouth. Vincent is terrified, but he quickly shouts at the dog and makes it go away. The officer is surprised by his behavior, but Vincent manages to cover up the situation, saying he is just suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder from the last vegan attack. The officer leaves, but Vincent remains disturbed. He tells Sophie about his fear, but she assures him that it is impossible for them to be caught because they have already disposed of all the bodies and there is no evidence against them. It turns out that Vincent disposed of all the victims' meat either by selling it or by putting it in black bags and distributing them throughout the city. Of course, they were forced to do this when awareness on social media increased, and the search for the missing people became more intense than before. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. It is Lucas, coming to apologize for his behavior towards them at the vegan festival. Lucas explains he was stressed since his vegan friends started disappearing. Sophie, the sly one, sympathizes with him while subtly hinting to her husband that Lucas is their new victim. But Vincent refuses and immediately leaves the house. The next day, without consulting Sophie, Vincent announces to the customers that he will no longer sell Iranian pork. This makes everyone angry, and they leave. The two then fight, and in the end, Vincent leaves the shop with his dog. At that moment, the group of vegans who destroyed Mark's shop goes to Vincent's shop to take revenge on them. Sophie tries to drive them away, but to no avail. The vegans tie her up and beat her mercilessly. When Vincent returns, he sees the vegans' car outside and realizes something has happened. Vincent gets angry and attacks them with his dog, killing 2 of them. But one of the vegans stabs Vincent in the shoulder. Sophie gets up just in time and finishes him off. The film ends after the couple is arrested and charged with 30 murders. We learn that Mark and Stephanie were the ones who informed the police of Vincent's strange behavior. In the end, due to the severity of their crimes, the butcher couple, Sophie and Vincent, are sentenced to death, which is the least they deserved.